province will recognize this conflict with agriculture and ranchers and begin to reflect the importance of acknowledging downstream effects of harvesting of the beetle kill wood. And so 2 Forest Practices Board reports have put forward recommendations. One is for a hydrological study before any other logging were to proceed. And I'm not sure why we didn't get a commitment to do just that. Why were we not given the commitment that a hydrological study would go forward when we're
so what the Liberal government's done now in terms of poor people is, you know, you got
in this province. We know
a mainstay of individuals that, you know, are struggling with drug addiction and, you know, are in a cycle of, you know, abuse and, you know, they don't have the family support structures that they need. You know, they're not getting the proper support system in terms of, you know, community service groups out there, you know, guiding them and helping them through their, you know, their problems, right? So as people are being arrested and put in jail, and even though they're dependent on social services to survive, which for, you know, an individual is $600 a month, and if they're on methadone, they pay out $60 to $80 a month just for their methadone, so that leaves them $520, $540 a month to live. But they're struggling with, you know, a lot of mental health issues and addiction issues, and, you know, they're maybe not highly educated, or, you know, they're psychologically damaged or whatever, right? So they go to jail for a month or two or whatever for some, you know, petty crime or breach, a lot of breaching, right? And then when they get out, I've just learned that these individuals, they have to wait at least 2 weeks before they can qualify to make an application to resume with social services, to, you know, to keep them going, right? So when they get out of jail, they have nothing, and they have nowhere to go. Oftentimes, they don't have family members, you know, you know, and recovery houses are full, and it's quite difficult.
Is it going to be fracking, or is it going to be agriculture?
Oh, it's going into fracking.
We need to have a dispute resolution process.
So after they've, you know, changed the watershed, and then they're going to pollute it.
We're going to have more and more and more of, as climate change happens, as our water situations change. It's always going to be agriculture against what? In the eyes of this government, agriculture is dead last every time. So it's not very. It's pretty predictable what will happen if this government stays in power. Now, the Forest Practices Board reports are pretty interesting. There's been 2 reports done on Randy's ranch, and through the exploration of these reports, you can't say that the logging of the pine beetle wood is specifically and the only cause of the water problems, but it's in the mix. So I think that they're concluding that there's climate change, there's weather patterns, and there is salvage harvesting. That's the mix of things. But one of the things that we can change is the way that we're salvaging the pine beetle wood. So if it's going to have a detrimental effect on other industries and other values in that area, that's something that we have to look at. How many reports does the government need? Because we know they're a fan of reviewing things, because how many reviews are undergoing, right? How many reviews are there? Is there 40, 50? It's endless. If you have a question, let's review, because even though we've got studies to back up, and we can probably conclude, looking at the studies that were already done, and follow recommendations, especially from the Forest Practices.
Exactly. Get over the bullshit. Let's just get on with it, you know? It's always bullshit, bullshit, bullshit.
If you're not actually following recommendations, I'm not really sure.
The only ones that don't get the bullshit package are the ones running around thinking their shit doesn't stink and running the show and taking all the money and getting ready to fly to some you know, Riviera when the radiation hits the west coast of Canada, because you think these people are going to be sticking around? Hell no, they're banking it. They're putting it away so that when the shit hits the fan, they're gone.
And make your remarks through the chair.
Yes. Thank you. I apologize. So the Forest Practices Board really does acknowledge that there is different values acting at the same time.
Yes, we should be thinking about, you know, where this water is going, because radiation will pull itself into water and follow streams and will
footprint of the
collect.
land, but also
So,
of the
you know, they
effect
need to
one
start
timber
factoring this
may have
into
on
their
another.
plans.
As the mountain pine beetle salvage program has unfolded, there's frequently issues where the enormity of the salvage effort is affecting the lives and livelihoods of other users of the public lands. And so I think those are quite strong words. If we can't take that, you know, the Minister of Forest and Lands sort of indicated that there's been an ongoing conversation with the ranching community around this issue, and it's being addressed, and there's some solutions that are being looked at. Well, as far as I understand, the ranchers weren't even invited to a meeting up in Williams Lake when the minister was there. So they don't feel that they are actually being listened to. And in fact, when I spoke with the rancher just minutes before question period, there had been no response. And so they feel quite slighted, and they feel that they don't matter. And it would be not surprising if they did walk away from the industry.
Welcome to my club. I don't matter either, and neither do my kids.
That's pretty good. If we put that into our domestic market, if we put that into government procurement, government purchasing, that's a lot of meat.
You know, when you cut people up and you put on big wounds,
it's about food.
And even if those wounds heal and you have several scars to show that you have been cut with a machete more than once, hacked, not cut, but more like hacked on, right? When humans are being hacked on and they manage to scurry away from that attack and, you know, lick their wounds in a corner in the dark, you know, and then eventually venture out with their scars that maybe some of them haven't completely healed. There's going to be a backlash. And, you know, the people that did the hacking with the machetes, you know, with their heavy hand and their boot on your throat, you know, the fact is, you, at some point, you know, the truth will come out into the light, and the scars and the wounds that are still festering and haven't healed completely are going to remain. And that's a fact of life. So a lot of people, you know, that's a metaphor or analogy or whatever you want to call it. That's what a lot of people are facing, are wounds that have been hacked on them by politics that devalue human life for a profit that oftentimes doesn't even relate to the country per se or the province, or, you know, a lot of this profit is going to China and India and places like that. You know, that's where the profit is going.
And depended on them. You can look at
and only to a select class of individuals. You know, it's not like that wealth is being spread out evenly in those countries either.
That is a detriment. They think, the government thinks that they are being fiscally responsible when actually they're being, the government's being absolutely irresponsible in long-term thinking. Absolutely irresponsible. So if the government were to go out, as I've been going out, and talk to every stakeholder group, because that's what you have to do. Agriculture is varied. You have to talk to every stakeholder group, and every single one talks about the value of extension services.
Yeah, I want to start an apple box program and support, you know, all the orchards up in the Kootenays, right? You know, and Hope and places like that, and you know, you know, do some dehydrating and you know, ship some overseas to the people that really need it. If we have a surplus, you know, obviously provide it for our own people that could benefit. You know, put it into schools, bring in the universal school meal program, you know, under the apple box program. But, you know, it's pretty hard when you're sitting up disenfranchised, you know, trying to maintain your kids from going crazy.
Extension officers as well.
You know, because of that hacking that's been going on since 2001.
Washington has 7 organic extension officers because Washington seems to value agriculture much more than the government of BC. the $100,000 commitment to a sector of agriculture that is actually growing and is strong and it's what consumers want is a very smart investment in the future. I know there's one thing that the government can't do, and that's argue that they believe in agriculture more than we do, because we do. We believe in agriculture more, and that's why there's an agricultural land reserve. That's why
and with bees dying, with all this Wi-Fi out in the community, you know, and now these hydro Wi-Fis, and you know, pretty soon we're not going to have an apple orchard unless we go out there and pollinate these trees by ourselves.
A little bit of funding came back for that last year, and that is in the budget, and I'm glad to see that. But when you have a deficit, agriculture is something that you have to tend. So if you don't fund it properly, if you don't have the right policies in place, what happens is that it basically starts to lack nutrients, just like a crop. And as the years go on, you can't produce as much because the deficit starts to show in what you're harvesting, and that's what we see. That's what we see with agriculture in BC. The farmers, the consumers, they're trying to do their best, but they're working against a government that doesn't believe in agriculture, doesn't fund agriculture, brings in policies that harm agriculture. And so when I hear any talk in the budget that was presented about how the BC Liberals are making agriculture stronger, it makes me laugh. It really does. And you can see with the letters that come in, I think the ranching community has been pretty patient over the last decade, pretty patient. And you know, they've tried to be innovative, but you know, every decision that this government makes, it's like they're falling behind, and that's the same in a lot of sectors in agriculture. So
that's the same in a lot of sectors in our community, period.
The government is losing critical support where they think they may have it, because they just nobody believes that this government supports agriculture anymore.
So why do they keep getting voted back in? Who's doing the voting?
Flower Creek watershed is
the upper crust? The ones in partnership with China and Asia and, you know, those ones?
A situation that's happening in the Bridge Lake area, and that's another group of ranchers that are very upset with the way, the pace that the government's dealing with them. So we'll be hearing more from them. I'm going to be getting a lot of